So the Bitcoin prices, do you have an idea for the low in your mind or an idea?
Honestly, I was projecting like anywhere from like 20 to like low 17s because I thought it was going to take a while for us to get to the 300 moving week average. Yeah, not so much. We're going like straight down. We got like a
Straight.
slight little rebound, but yeah, it's going to go lower. So I was targeting the 300 week moving average, because we've been there once before, and I think that's like closer to like 16.6, 16.5 right now. And that seems
Yeah, they pulled these
completely
prices.
doable right about now. Because even if we just tread sideways for a little bit, the macro picture is so bad. It's like it's going to drag Bitcoin down with it, and therefore all the other coins. So that's basically my outlook on that. The thing that I'm personally freaking out about is twofold. One, steady income coming in that I can use to go buy this mother of all dips that we're in, right? So like that's part of why I'm stressed out. And then there's like the emotional reaction of like watching your balances go down. But it's like in the end, it's just a giant opportunity because like purchasing Bitcoin at the 200 week moving average, awesome. That is good. Consistently good.
Yeah.
Like no one has ever regretted that as long as they had long term vision. Um,
In terms of the history, that's been like I think it's been three times it's touched that moving average. And
yep.
every time it's bounced back extremely heavily and been like an all-time local bottom. So
Yep, just like the cycle low, right? I think, like I said before, it's looking like we're going to go for the 300 because, like, once again, the macro picture doesn't get any better just because Bitcoin touched the 200-day moving average. So,
yeah, I know, right? Like there's the whole environment of like other countries are also experiencing random hyperinflations, and that kind of puts
yep,
pressure on these things too, because
yep. And
money
the
goes into the
Japanese yen,
dollar.
for example, is like trying to melt down right now. So it's like it ain't good. So I guess in the end, it's like the buying opportunity will get better, but like I need to get in position to capitalize on it, right? So like I have a bunch of stable coins that are just sitting there doing nothing. And then I think I'm gonna start averaging in like once that job gets what's it called? Once I accept the offer and once I'm actually working and I like it. Either one of them basically, right? So that's basically my plan short term to medium term. Because like once again, I think in our last meeting, like our last little Zoom meeting, I said down only. Down only, yeah. So I think that's basically what's gonna happen. What's the other thing that I wanted to say? Like the other thing is I don't think it's gonna be a strong rebound. I think this is a cycle low with a reset. So like it's probably going to be this way for like a year or so, I think, year or two tops, because like it's got to take time for the Fed to properly crush the economy, because that's what they're going to do.
I know, right?
Anyone
Yeah.
hoping for a soft landing. Mm-mm. Um, so like once that happens, I think they're going to pivot because something will break. Because they, like you were saying before, they'll cause the break, and then they'll come in like a superhero saying they're here to
Yeah.
fix it and turn on the money printer, right? And that's what I'm hoping for, that Cambrian explosion. Like that's when I think things get a lot better real fast. But
Do you think the money printer could be like a CBDC and like a totally new, like when they turn on the new system, it's like a turning on the new system entirely?
I wish. I just think the American public's going to be way too slow to adopt that, right?
Hmm.
So
You
if
don't think
it's
it's gonna be like a forced thing? I heard something where it kind of made sense, like the way that they could bring it about, where it's like it'll be part of a crisis, you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, well, we're gonna print you the money, but like think about this, right?
you have to
Someone
print, you
was
have to
putting it in a
online log
decent
in for
way.
this digital wallet kind of thing.
Exactly. But like, okay, but like imagine the idea is like they'll promote it as though like, hey, do you remember that time that we gave you all like $1,000+ and it screwed up the economy because like we kind of hyperinflated everything? Well, now we kind of need to do that again, but we can't have you guys putting all this money into like bubbles of stocks and stuff, and maybe even housing investments and bubbles and whatever. And we can't have you guys price gouging, and we can't have you guys increasing the price of food too much and blah blah blah. So we're going to be putting restrictions on the kind of stuff that you can buy, and the way that we're going to do that is by putting it directly in code as the CBDC. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying. I agree. Like, create this massive crisis of epic proportions, And it's like, hey, you can stay with the old system and go hungry.
Right, exactly. It's like,
Lose
but if you want
everything.
this $10,000, you have to spend it within a month, and you can't put it into Bitcoin and blah blah blah, and and it's entirely
Yeah.
traced, and like, yeah, use your
Yeah.
little Fed
So
coins.
a Fed coin. Yeah. I think you're right about that possibility because but imagine, how should I put this? Imagine the level of pain and suffering that would have to go down before like
I
the
know.
American public would
Yeah.
willingly go along with that. So
For
it's like,
people, I know it would have to be like another kind of thing where people are like, please just lock me in my house for 2 years, man. You know what I mean? Like people, yeah,
yeah,
I know. And
just
I
complete
kind of had this in the
desolation.
back of my mind, but like I heard someone else say it on like YouTube at some point, and it kind of just made sense all at once in that moment. Where it was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like even the 2 year planning of like the hyperinflation was kind of like a well positioned for them to look back on and be like, hey, look what we can't do this time, But I don't
Yeah.
know.
So like that did cross my mind. And like I said before, like if you look at like tin pot dictators or whatever, right? Like most of the time, like not tin pot dictators. So let's take a look at Venezuela. They've switched their currency like what 3, 4 times in the last 20 years, probably more. Um, and that's what happens. There's a crisis, and they're like, "Hey, forget the old stuff. Here goes the new stuff. This stuff is the
Yeah.
new standard." And you see that a lot happening when there's like when there's super poor monetary policy. They'll just switch currencies and attempt to go to a new system to fix things. And it's like, no, like the confidence has been lost in the government and their fiat standard. So it's like the new standard's going to be just as bad as the old one. You can pretty much bet on it, and everyone plans for that. So yeah, I think you're 100% right. Like that would be a way to get it done. It's just if that's the game plan, ooh, I don't. I want to live, but I don't like the thought of living in that environment, right?
I
Because
know
it's
that universe is going to be quite the interesting story to tell for
dystopian
sure.
is the word you're looking for, dog.
Yeah, man, straight up dystopian. I mean, we're almost halfway there, man. And like, I like the closer we get to this like 2030 time, I wonder how
Yeah,
really recognizable the world is going to be in a couple of years, man.
yeah. It like I said before, it's super scary. But I choose not to think in those terms, right? Like I'm just saying it like, okay, from a guy who has steady income, who's positioned himself well, what opportunities are going to be available for me? Like, how can I capitalize on this? And that's like the mindset that I'm really focusing on. Because if you get all dystopian doom porn, like it's not,
Yeah,
you're not going to
that's
be a
part of the
happy person.
emotional investing. You got to
Yeah,
be, yeah, I don't know, you got to be non-emotional about it somehow. But
yeah, exactly.
do you think art is like something you would ever go into? Have you ever bought an NFT? Or like, do you think art is something you'd want to diversify into like later on?
Yeah, I have an NFT, but
Okay.
there's monetary reward there. So like GMX, they have the Blueberry Club, and
Oh,
they
really?
reward you with ESGMX every month, like on the 28th. So it's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, cool. I'll take a few bucks for owning an NFT. And then you just don't know the roadmap of the future. It looks like they're trying to make it more sustainable, as in like you get more income, more yield. There's different perks, you get a couple free trades and stuff like that for owning it. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep this, right? So that's what I've been doing so far. NFTs and stuff. I think the current form of NFTs are going to be a little doomed, right? But I think what NFTs are capable of really are like with decentralized identity and stuff like that, those are NFTs, right? So like I think NFTs are going to be massive and just people haven't figured out the best use cases for them yet, but it's
Yeah, everyone's making those
super funny.
10,000 at a time sets of funny looking dogs.
Mhm.
And I don't
And
know.
then like just
Yeah,
even
that's
the
not like the
actual,
main way.
yeah, like even the sets you're talking about right now, like right now it's just a picture, but like with NFTs, you can code in attributes as well. So like if this picture has red hair versus the other one with blue hair, that's codable, right? And that definitely makes it distinguishable from everything else. So like you'll see an NFT with like all these different codable sets, and the codable sets of characteristics, should I say.
Hmm.
And then that will probably be what it kind of moves into later on, I think. But like just you know, $14,000 for a JPEG. No, I don't think that's going to that's not going to sustain in its current form. Like, there's no way.
Nah, I think there'll be like 2 or 3 that kind of keep that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because they'll be the OGs. They'll be like what people
Exactly.
buy and like
That whole
remember that
lindiness,
whole.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, who knows? CryptoPunks, for example, actually the
That's what I
full.
think too, man. I think those are going to be
Yeah.
sticking around, just not only
Mhm.
because of their like firstness, but like what it means to be them is like they created what NFTs are. You know, like
Yeah.
they're so new that like the NFT standard didn't exist, and they had to like rebuild them as the new NFT standard after people looked at that and were like, we can turn that into a standard. You know,
Yeah.
so like that means something historically for like technology as it was
Collectors.
progressed
Yeah.
through. Yeah. And also honestly, I feel like the Bored Ape Yacht Club
Hmm.
is like has shoved itself into that position as well. Um, Almost just on accident, just because of the price inflation, just the hype. Like that's still gonna be around, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna say, like, I think the board up, it wasn't an accident, right? What you
No,
saw
I
was
really think it's pretty coordinated, man.
masterful marketing and just excellent execution, basically, right? But like, the thing that scares me about board, I think it's BAYC, like
Yeah, them
Board Ape Yacht Club.
Basie,
They're kind of going
right?
too far with it. Yeah, they're going too far with it. Like, they're trying to do like their own metaverse using the A coin
Hmm.
as their own coin, and I think that stuff's gonna fall on its face. But like,
You
they
think it would
got it
cost too
right as
much to
far as
develop or something?
um. So I think they went too far with it because, like, look how the execution of it was. Right, they didn't execute well. Like, did you see what happened when they launched their land purchases or whatever on Ethereum? Or were you familiar with?
Well, it was like the biggest land purchase of like all time, right?
Yeah, that
At least
too. But it was
virtually.
also the sloppiest, man. Like, they burnt so much ETH. Like, it was at one point the gas price was literally over 12,000. I saw it with my own eyes, or maybe it was over 11
12,000,
for
man.
gas. Yeah, just for funsies, I loaded up something on Convex just to try to see if I could claim like whatever I had. It would have been a $25,000 transaction, right? $25,000 worth of ETH had
And
been.
so, like, did that last for like hours, or how long was
Yeah,
that
it lasted for
problem?
hours. Like, the average was over 8,000 gas, like when they were doing that land release, right? And it created
Okay.
such a big fuss. So many people were upset. They're literally moving to like a layer two, I think. It was between
Mhm.
EVM and then a layer two Ethereum chain, basically. But they're moving off chain because it was such a hot mess and it costed so much money and it was wasted because they didn't execute properly, right? They didn't have the
They're trying to
plan.
make their own blockchain.
Oh, they thought about it, yeah. So now they're going to move on to, I can't remember if it's, maybe it's optimism. I can't remember which layer two they're going to move on to. Basically, is what they're going to do. But they're
But
not.
they found
They're not
some
going to stay on
scaling
the main
solution.
ETH chain. Hmm?
They found some scaling solution though, because they're not doing that again. That's good though, at least. You know, I remember that was so hyped. Like a lot of bots kept tagging me on Twitter about
Yeah,
the other side thing.
yeah, man. So like, I think overall, like, Board Eight Yachts Club, they're doing it right. It's just, I feel like they're overreaching. But who
Mhm.
knows? Like, maybe they're overreaching because they're going to be successful, right? Like, you have to
Yeah.
grow or die in this world. So like,
But in this world, also, you have to kind of like promise the world to people, otherwise they don't care, you know?
yeah. And they also figured it out from how should I put this? Also advertising, but there's another way I'm trying to think of. Basically, they consistently get airdrops. So every time a new Board Ape Yacht Club spinoff comes up, they ship 10,000 copies to the original owners or whatever, to whoever holds that NFT. So like, it's perpetually producing yield in the fact that you can just sell off the stuff they give you, and
Hmm.
the new owners of the other people just deal. The new owners of the spinoff NFTs have to deal with it. So like, as
Right.
long as
Yeah.
you own the original, it's just consistently giving you yield in one way or another, basically.
And
On
is that
top
for
of
airdrops
price
for?
movement. Hmm?
So can you name an example of one of those airdrop projects?
Um, Yeah, so they had the mutant apes.
Right,
They
but wasn't that made by the same people?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's Yuga Labs, and
Right.
then
So Are there airdrops of stuff made by like non-Yuga Labs that would still no? Okay, that would
Yeah, I feel
not.
like it's
Okay.
all through the same companies and everything like that. So like
Okay.
even the Ape Coin, for example, that's what I mean. Like all these people own the original Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, and then there's like Mutant Apes, and then there's like Mutant Bored Ape Yacht Dogs or whatever. Just like there's consistently deals, and I can't remember the names of all of them, but I do
Huh.
remember there's been at least 3 or 4 things that have led to steady income, and they're not going to stop. They're going to keep doing that, right?
Huh.
Um, so that's another way that Bored Ape Yacht Club owners still get return on their investment, basically.
You just get to sell on to people forever, bro.
Yeah, you get to dump
That's a little.
in perpetuity as long as they keep releasing this stuff, right? I question how useful that will be in the depths of a real bear market as we are rapidly heading into. I think we're in the worst of it now, but like what happens, if this lasts a year and a half or something like that, and it's still not down only, but we hit down and we just trade sideways while we're building up momentum for the next wave up. So
Yeah, sideways is painful in crypto, man.
yeah, not as painful as down only. Down only sucks. Like,
Down, yeah, but like, dude, it's been down only for the past like 6 months. So
yeah,
I don't even know.
yeah.
I don't know. Like
So
when it goes sideways, it's
so
more like I'm just waiting for it to make a
just
decision.
do
So I
something.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, just do something. Have you seen that meme where there's a dude
Yeah, he's
rocking the
poking it
beat
with
and
a
he's got a
stick or
stick?
something.
Yeah, that's I want that right now. That's all I want, right? Like let me accumulate and not immediately regret accumulating, right? So
I've seen that
that's kind of
meme.
what I'm going for.
They put that
Mhm.
meme there with Gary Gensler too. He's sitting there and they're like, "Come on, do something," And he's like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Only it's like my retirement account is doing that too. So it's like, oh, so bad. It's so bad. So I just see that going on and like just dealing with the emotional, like I'm struggling on coping right now, man, because it's just like I had plans, I had a good execution, I knew a bear market was coming, and for some reason, I just blocked out what actually happens in a bear market, right? So like we're here now, and I always thought I would have sold before we got here, and I am riding along the bottom of a bear market now. And it's like, there's no point in selling now because as long as you're in good assets, the worst of the fall is already over with, right? So like,
"That's how I'm
even
feeling about it." Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so like,
I
yeah,
feel like a lot of this is forced sells now. Does that
mhm,
make sense? Like
yeah,
people aren't
so
really wanting to sell right now. They're kind of
yeah,
just either
nobody,
panicking out of their positions or being completely liquidated. You know?
yeah. So perfect example, and I was going to bring this up with you later on too. Is like, look at Celsius and 3AC. They are the
Yeah.
definition of forced sellers, and
Oh
like
yeah.
the thing about them is like with them going down and possibly being insolvent, like they still hold a ton of crypto. So like that's going to get liquidated if they go through bankruptcy. So that they
I
can
know it totally can. That's why I'm
yeah.
wondering. Like, I feel like they right now are like almost the single players up there, like holding up the Bitcoin price. Because if it
Mhm.
gets below that level, they're like really kind of screwed, right?
Yeah. So there will be other ones too. Like you can pretty much bet all the crypto exchanges, if they have free funds, they're probably propping up the price of Bitcoin right now. But
I would
like,
assume, yeah, I would assume. I think
so
there's actually pretty big companies trying to hold that level up, and to the point where I
mhm.
wonder if it can even, because the thing is right now, I've heard a lot of different people say that they're waiting for the bottom of Bitcoin to be like around 12K. And if you really take it from different levels, it could be like $10,350. But by the time it goes down to like the 85% drop off the all-time high, like it's usually done. But that doesn't really have to happen, especially if people actually end up front running the trade, expecting that. Um,
Yep.
that like or either front run the trade expecting it to get in front of the rest of us, or just trying to straight up protect their own liquidation prices. But then it
Yeah.
becomes the fight of these big whales out there, because then it's like, and maybe a bigger whale is going to be like, no, I'm liquidating that whole thing out, right? Because uh,
Yeah, because they want to get in control of the market, right? They want to corner the market, liquidate their competitors, and then they buy up whatever is left, right? And
exactly.
then
And I could see that actually happening as a forced attack, because it's kind of just, especially if they're straight up using DeFi markets out there, like that's completely going to be easy to with,
Manipulate, yeah, with
with
enough
enough
funds.
size, you just go in there with the and press the
Mhm.
button.
So like you're understanding it, right? Then have you ever seen Dune, like the old Frank Herbert movie
I
Dune?
did a long time ago, but
Yeah.
I don't really remember much of it.
So they say he who can destroy a thing can also control a thing, right? That's probably one of the phrases from that's one of the phrases from Dune. When I think of stuff like this, like to me, there's a clear cabal of entities that really do affect and control the Bitcoin price, right?
I
And
know, right? Sometimes I'm just like, really, it's like that straight up, like, yeah, it's like very
yeah,
central.
so like that cabal has different entities that jump in and out, right? Depending on how much size they have and who wants to control what. But like there's a group, right, that definitely affected.
Do you think
So like
Bitfinex is part of that?
I think all the old school large exchanges definitely have a hand in that, right? So, like,
Huh,
let's
okay.
say Kraken and Gemini, Coinbase, all of them definitely have some hand in that. And then there's also groups like the Digital Currency Group, who I have zero love for and barely know exist, but they have their fingers in everything in crypto, right?
That's
Like, they're
so weird to
definitely,
me. I've been researching them lately, and that's so weird to me. Because like
yeah.
Monero, really?
Like a privacy coin, right? Like
But
they
what
have
is
their
what
hands
is what are the
dashed.
implications of that?
What, like the digital currency group, like some large entity really controlling everything, or the privacy coin?
Around Monero specifically? Like,
Oh,
what do you think? Like, how much do they control of it?
I honestly don't know. I'm gonna say they probably have a healthy position size in it, and it could be one of those things where they just bought it because at the time Monero was like the awesomest, well-known privacy coin ever. So there's always going to be flow of funds through there, whether they're illicit or not. So like as long
Hmm.
as they own a healthy position of it and they have the ability to pump it at will, yeah, it's just another tool to get more income or revenue over time, right? So like I don't think it's bad that digital currency owns it, especially if you're a holder of Monero. I do worry. Actually, no, I think it's only a good thing for the most part. Like it's never going to be another Bitcoin, but like it'll always live. It'll always survive. It
Right. So
won't
they
be one of
hold it as
those.
an asset, but do they control it in any way of like either the development of it or anything like that?
I don't think they're doing that. No, I think they're
Okay.
just holding it as an asset. That's my guess, right? Because I don't have the crystal
Yeah.
ball. I'm
I really
not.
haven't been able to find much information about what they do with Monero. Because when
Yeah.
you look up digital currency group, it's like it kind of takes you to a website that's almost like a list of other websites of stuff that they're working on because it's like a
Yeah.
big group.
Dude, it's a who's who of crypto, honestly. Like if you look at the digital currency group and who they're affiliated with, it's like everyone who has power in the crypto space. And it's like, whoa, that's kind of odd. Like why is one organization like with that ability has that influence, that much connection to literally everybody else? Like that's the underlying theme. Like, and it's even newer projects like Mina and stuff like that. Like they got their fingers into that. I'm just like, okay, so it's an OG organization who's got their fingers in everything that we don't hear about. Like, just it doesn't strike me as it doesn't leave me with a happy feeling, right? It leads me
Mhm.
toward that doom porn scenario where it's like, okay, what is this group really doing? Do I really want to know what this group is doing? And the answer is no, I don't. I'm gonna let that be and just
Yeah,
live my
sometimes I
life.
wonder. But like I think like a lot of times that's because these companies are just made of people, and sometimes it's like the same people from the very beginning, either with the same skills or whatever, starting different parts of the company, because like after you start a company, then you're like, oh, okay, well then there's this other problem to solve, and that's actually a company in itself. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these people are probably from like the Y Combinator area. You know what I mean? Like that's where Coinbase came out of, and they probably knew each other just
Oh
from
yeah, that's
the
what you're talking about now. Like they're all
yeah.
from the same group of people for the
Yeah,
most
like
part.
literally
Some,
probably even geographically, straight up from California,
yeah.
That's yeah. In fact, like stuff like that happens where have you heard of like the PayPal Mafia?
No, no, I have not.
The PayPal Mafia is basically the people who like started PayPal together, and it includes Peter Thiel, whatever how you pronounce his name from Google,
Yep.
and Elon Musk and a bunch of other people who basically went out and started other huge companies. But yeah, like if you follow their lives, and then it kind of like makes sense that they know each other because then you're like, oh, they
Yeah.
did this again, and it's related to that thing where they're. And that, I'm sure that happens mostly in many many different
Yeah.
industries. So it's not even that shocking to me
No, it's
that.
humans. This is what we do. We click up, right? We form new relationships. We make allies, friends, occasionally
Yeah.
enemies, right?
And then a couple of
But
friends get really rich and they stay rich together, you know what I mean?
yeah. So yeah, that's just literally human nature. It's people being people. But yeah, I completely agree with you. It probably is centralized in that manner, as far as like you'll have these groups or clusters of people that like they just work together and control things, right?
Mm.
So yeah, there's that. Basically, learning to cope with this part of the bear market is the thing that's on my mind, because it's like, okay, play with my kids, go get a job, um,
Yeah.
and
Like
then
remember
try
what the
not
money
to
is
think
for in the first
twice,
place, right?
huh?
Remember what the money is for in the first place and then like go do those things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cause sometimes I'm trying to remember that too, because it's like then you're just stacking coins, then it's like then what? You know, it's like go
yeah.
put it to some other use, like take them out and I don't know, have some fun.
And that was a massive stressor for me in the bull market, because at one point, like, I
You don't
don't.
want to take it out at all, I know.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, what am I going to put it in? Because at that point, like everything was so inflated. It was just like, okay, property is like all-time record highs, stock market,
Yeah.
all-time record highs. It's like, okay, I need to do something with it, but I don't want to buy a property and then lose like 40% value when the market crashes, right? Because like it's the everything bubble, right? Like that's part of the thing that I was watching. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then what happened was we got that second peak, and I was like, okay, we're going to 100K. There's no way Bitcoin's going to get to an all-time high, get a few thousand
Right.
dollars, and then roll over into a bear market. Like I actually said that to someone, and then sure as that happened, like sure as I said those words came out of my mouth, it's like God was listening. He's just like, that sounds like a good idea, Eric.
Yeah.
I got
Don't
wrecked
give the
all.
universe ideas, man. Dude, it'll do it.
Yeah, the universe
It'll
had
do
plans for me.
exactly.
So that's how I got wrecked the second time. But like this time, like next cycle, assuming there is a next cycle, like
Right.
I will keep moon bags, right? Like I'll probably always have one BTC. I'll probably have an X amount of Ethereum on me. I'll probably have X amount of certain coins, and I'm selling everything. Like that is the plan. Like, and I'll probably use the Benjamin Cowan risk metrics or something like that. And I
You
will.
know, have you heard of the Pi cycle top indicator?
Yeah, that was the one that
That thing
fired me
called the
right
top.
before. Yeah, it nailed it. Because I remember the first top, like the real one, like it called it straight up, like, "Hey, we should sell. We're topped. And everyone I knew, all the crypto influencers, everything I listened to, everybody's like, forget that one. This is the only one that fired. Look at all these other indicators. And then, 3 months later, it's like, oh man, maybe that was the top. Like we went
Mhm.
into that like depressing summer, and it was like, oh, we just watched it melt down from 64 to 30K. And
Did
yeah,
you follow anyone who did call the top? So, for me, I was I've only seen a blockchain backer call the top.
yeah. Oh, that's actually what got me on to Benjamin Cowan, because like he wasn't saying it was a top, but he's like, dude, we got to come down. We got to come down. This is not sustainable. This is going to crash. I'm telling you, I'm selling. I'm selling this. And he was on it. And I
Hmm.
remember watching him, and it's like, dude, you are on drugs. Why are you saying this is going to crash? And then like it crashed. And I was like, oh, maybe he had something there. So then I started listening to him. And with him, it's like he will throw out both scenarios, right? But he also has the history. I mean, all of the history of Bitcoin charted. He knows every example. Everything he quotes is based off like reasonable speculation or just straight up facts and history. And it's like, okay, I can get down with this guy, right? Because he's not permanent bull, not permanent bear. And he's not throwing out far-fetched ideas. Or if he sounds far-fetched, he has the data to back it up. Because so like I follow that guy pretty intently, and then it's just an assortment of other people. But the folks that I stay away from, but I take that back. I listen to, but I have a strong, not even a grain of salt, like a bag, a 1 pound bag of salt. It's like Anthony Pompliano, Will Clemente, like all the Bitcoin maxis, like Dylan Roof, like straight up, like, oh, Bitcoin is the way at all times. And it's like, if you close your mind off to other options, like of course you're going to fall into the maxi camp, and then you're blinded to like what the market's doing. Basically, you're going to lure people into bad markets if you're not careful, right? So like if you watch those people half the time, they'll be like, oh, this is kind of a tenuous time, but you should buy all the Bitcoin you can. Buy it right now, right now, right now, right now, you know? And it's like, okay, so like let's say I'm just a new person coming in. I got here late. I see it's crashing. If I FOMO in with everything I have, from the moment you said I should start buying, I'd have been buying at 30K, and then like I'm halved, right? Um, so like that's the reason I'm really careful about the Bitcoin maxis, right? Like to me, I think a healthy aspect is you look at all the markets, right? And you listen to macro guys, you listen to the Bitcoin guys, and you listen to like smart people in the altcoin space. And then you have to make your own decision from there. But yeah.
You know, what that kind of reminds me of is though, do you remember Ethereum Classic?
Yeah.
Okay. That performed better than like a lot of coins. And that's just another one of these examples to me of like, why did everything crappy pump?
So
and like that, huh?
Oh, why did it pump so much harder than like the
Yeah,
quality?
exactly. Why did it pump so much harder than like, yeah, sure, it was, so a lot of cryptos went up kind of together. But like, how come the ones that have actually been like going parabolic are these extremely crappy coins that no one cares about? It's like someone forgot to short them.
Yeah.
You know, that's like,
So
in fact, that in itself makes me think like I should definitely be buying more altcoins, because like if like this, it reminds me of, I've seen this before in other cycles. Do you remember BitConnect or any of that? Like,
that was before my time, but I did the
but like
research.
I remember this though. This is what happened the last time and the time before. It's always these really dumb coins that pump first and just make you feel so dumb. And then like they outperform every hedge fund. They outperform, but then there's actually no liquidity in it. So a hedge fund couldn't actually gain any profit off that thing without buying at the extreme bottom, going up 100 times and then selling 2% to double your money. You know what I mean? So, which is basically probably what Elon Musk did. But like, unless you actually were buying at those bottoms, we're not going to be able to do that with $1 billion. You know, so that's kind of what I've been thinking about. I don't know.
So I had two thoughts. Like one, I think the two thoughts on that is one, retail, right? So you'll get people that come in and they don't know. It's hard not to curse. They don't know stuff about stuff, right? Insert the proper expletive you would like. They'll come in and be like, "Oh, Ethereum is $4,000. Oh, but Ethereum Classic is $12. I'm gonna buy that because it's gonna be the next Ethereum, right?" Like, I talked to people who legit thought that way, and it's like, no, there's this cool thing called a market cap, and it means that unless Ethereum Classic goes up 2,000% in, you know, market cap, it's never going to catch Ethereum. So they don't know that though. So they'll go buy whatever is cheap, thinking it's all going to pump, and it creates this like self-sustaining cycle. Because like, remember, these are very low volume, very low market cap coins. So like retail can actually get in there and affect the price of it for the most part. And it creates like this self-fulfilling prophecy, because like as they start getting gains, they go tell everybody else about this, you know, Ethereum Classic and Doge or all these other smaller coins that at the time were very liquid, and like the hedge funds can't touch them because as soon as they dump a pinky finger into it, it's like what we were talking about last time with the sovereign wealth funds getting into Bitcoin. It's the same effect, right? Like if the hedge funds, VCs come in and put a pinky into it, explodes the price like tenfold, right? Like they don't want to do that because like then they're the ones that are going to be the exit liquidity for all the retail people that were there before them, right? So that's one thing that causes this perpetual cycle of those coins pumping, right? And like I would argue
that
that's
one
really
thing is like, how do they like, the one thing is like how could that, well, like how do you know which coin is going to do that over and over? You know what I mean? Like just like the old ones that lindiness more, you know. Eventually though, you would expect like Litecoin to come back up, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm still kind of expecting that. In fact, the fact that Bitcoins haven't dropped even farther makes me, first of all, think it's not over yet, and second of all, makes me think that like we could see a relief rally pretty soon. But I've been saying that forever, dude. But like, I don't know. It kind of maybe you're right, and it really does literally depend on the Fed pivoting, because I'm saying nothing in these charts that's making me think like it's gonna
It's down
stop
only.
being bottomed out.
Yeah.
It's like the RSI is like an all-time low. There's a bunch of stuff being like, yeah, it's very oversold, but there's nothing being like, yeah, it's done being oversold.
Yeah,
That I'm
exactly.
seeing.
So like I think eventually there will be a relief rally, but I'm gonna call it a suckers rally, right? Like people are
Yeah,
gonna get in and they're gonna FOMO, but I don't know how high that rally goes, and it definitely gets sold off, right? Like there's no way. Like we're not going back up to all-time highs from this point. Um,
from this
so
point, you don't even need all-time highs to make decent profit.
yeah, it's pretty brutal out there, man. I haven't looked at the price in like a day and a half, but I take that back. I looked at it, I glanced at it, and we are back over 20K last night. Um, but I'm trying to stay away from that. So I said with those smaller liquid coins, I think retail comes in and pumps it because they just don't know any better, because they don't know the history behind any of this stuff, right? So
Yeah.
like Ethereum Classic has been attacked and what? No, I'm thinking about Bitcoin. No, Ethereum Classic too has been attacked and reorged before, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think it was successfully 51% attacked.
Yeah, exactly. And like anyone who's in the crypto space, like we hear that and it's like, no,
I
I'm not.
know. We're just like good jokes, right?
Yeah,
Good jokes. But
and then it
that's what I'm
pumps.
saying is like it's such an obviously bad joke that it's like what it reminds me of is like in the past cycles, it was BitConnect that pumped really hard first. Other coins back in the day, meme
Yeah, but those
coins,
were
we call it.
Ponzi. Like they were
I know,
straight up Ponzi's. Like that's
but
why they pumped
so
so hard.
in a way, so are a lot of these other things that are pumping right now. But like maybe you don't want to call it a Ponzi specifically, maybe it's a pyramid scheme or whatever. But
Hmm.
like let's put it this way. If there was a single engineer at Luna who had a thought in his mind that maybe the thing was unsustainable, then that kind of turns into a Ponzi scheme, you know?
Yeah,
If they really just didn't know, then they were really just that oblivious and ignorant, and like I called it and they didn't, then like fine, you don't have to call it a Ponzi scheme because like there was really no ill intent and they just wanted to create a stable coin and they just didn't
yeah,
know what they were thinking. But like, but yeah, I really think but that's what I'm saying though. Like at the beginning part of these cycles, it's always these Ponzi schemes. And then like I remember watching, there was a coin called Meme Coin.
they
It was
called
called
it
Meme
meme
Coin.
coin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was one of the original meme coins. It's completely rug pulled. Then there was like Pepe Coin. You ever heard of that one?
yeah.
So
I
then
know
there's
Pepe.
actually like
I'm a big fan of
there's
him.
like four. It got relaunched four times because it was
Hmm.
like, but every time it actually pumped pretty hard from the bottom. But like the bottom was like almost zero by the time it collapsed. And but the thing is, this is very common in the crypto markets. It's these things that happen first, and then people will be like, "Why didn't I buy meme coin?" Literally. And then like, "Why
Yeah,
didn't I buy BitConnect?" And then it collapses, and then people go, "You know what? Fundamentals kind of matter." Like I know that Litecoin just fell 80%, but my coin fell 99.9999999%. Maybe I should have looked into other things that have solid fundamentals. I'll start to buy a Litecoin. Like, and then I think that's really where the second like half of the cycle comes from. Because like one of the main things that I saw recently was you have to remember how volatile this market is, man. Like I like, for example, like the markets could go to all-time high and past it again and then drop 95% from there. You know what I mean? That's how volatile this market is. Like this doesn't even have to be the top or the bottom of any of this. It could swing one more time harder in both directions. So that's kind of what I'm trying to remember, is because it's like I still have it at the back of my mind saying that like we have now seen the pump and dump of the meme coins and that stuff. And then like the second half of it is fundamentals, where fundamentals shine. Like at least in the historically, what's been going on. Like what I'm wondering that right now is like maybe all of that was front run, and like people like me were sitting there thinking like, hey, like Litecoin is like an XLM and these things are like really strong technologies, but they're not being used heavily enough, and the hedge funds know that, so they're just going to dump on us until the future where there's actually enough demand from the utility. But I don't
yeah.
know. These are kind of
So
just
here
my thoughts
goes.
on it.
I mean, this is where we disagree a little bit. So like, this is the second part of the why these crappy coins are pumping. So like,
Mm.
in a bull market, those crappy coins will pump because those hedge funds and VCs that I said probably trying to stay away from that stuff because it's so liquid. Let's say they have $1 billion of AUM, right? And they can invest whatever they want. They're not going to put all $1 billion into one meme coin, right? But who says that they won't put 100,000 or 10,000 into it, right? And maybe shift the price a little bit. And they look at which coins have existed in the past, which have the lendiness effect, right? And they go ahead and just put 10K or 1,000, 10K, 100K into it. I think that causes like the floor price to go up.
Yeah.
Retail sees that and then they come in behind them basically. And that is the ideal situation for the hedgies. Because like if retail can start driving the coin up on their own after they've gotten in, well, guess what's getting sold when we do run into like a no shite bear market, right? Like they're going to sell off everything because they know, okay, bear market's in, macro looks pre-apocalyptic right now, like it's coming. Let's get out right now because their only mandate is to get profit, right? So like if everything's going down massively and they're not running a ton of shorts, like the only incentive they have is to sell, right?
Yeah.
Maintain and preserve your capital and your gains and then just give it to your investors. They're going to pay you 2%, 20%, whatever it is you have it set up, and then walk away, right? Because they don't care about the bear markets. Maybe they care in the sense that they can monitor which coins are going to be maybe good for the next cycle. And arguably half of them probably don't even exist because there's always a new crop of coins that pump for no reason. But like they can maybe pay attention to the ones that have the Lindy effect that have survived a few cycles before. And then, oh, okay, cool. We'll just wait for this to get to 97% down and we'll start putting money into it or something like that. Or if it gets to 82%, we'll start putting just a sprinkle of cash into that type of deal. But overall, I think those very same VCs that pumped everything up, they're going to be selling because they don't want to be the next Three Arrows Capital, right? Like they're going to try to avoid being in that scenario, in that situation. So like all that leads to, like I said before, down only or at best sideways, right? So like until all this foolishness plays out with these large players going insolvent and possibly bankrupt, like you're looking at possibly like a Mount Gox type deal where you have like the shadows of these companies looming over the crypto space for years. And it's like, oh, we don't need this. We don't. So either way, like with the macro, these companies going out of business, like hedge funds just getting out, right? Like this leads to that down only. I can't see
How much hedge funds, hedge fund, like, do you think hedge fund action is like a significant volume percentage?
Yeah. I think crypto for the most part is like hedge fund. What's retail, right? It's us, right? And then also it's like hedge fund playground because there's like very little real regulation against them here that really monitor what they're doing, right? Because like the SEC is here to protect large investors, but those large investors are the hedge funds, right? They don't care about retail. We know this. So
Yeah.
like, I just feel that let's say they're doing illicit things in the stock market, they can park that in crypto and have fun, right? Like it's not going to be a problem for them. Like they can park it in the stable coins that aren't UST or USDD, USN, these ones that are like still running the algo Luna style model of
Yeah.
like, yeah, because there's like two other ones that are out there that are basically UST clones.
The
It's
Tron
Tron,
based one.
USD, and then Near has one that's over collateralized, but it's still the same thing. It's pretty similar with the US, what's the name of it? USDN is what it is.
Yeah.
So like there's still a few of them that are floating around that have large amounts of capital behind them. So it's just like, well, when do those blow up? So
Yeah.
overall, I just think we're not in a good place, right? Like this thing can go down further. So like I remember when we first started talking, you saw maybe 10, 11K, 12K as the low. And I'm like, that's pretty
For
far
Bitcoin?
down, man. But like from here, that's an eyesight for the first time in recent memory, right? For the first time
Right.
in 2 years, it's like, oh
Right.
man, I can't
But
see it really
now,
down, but it's more possible now. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking like enough people are saying that now that people could just be trying to front run it,
Yeah. So
right?
ultimately, I think you're right. It does get front ran because like I don't see us going down that low, but like for the first time, there's like an inkling of, oh man, maybe he was right. But once again, anyone who's paid attention to the cycles, multiple cycles, which will be the large hedge funds, it'll be large investments, all these long only investors who are like big money, they'll have people like us working for them that know, like, okay, what are the odds that it falls below the 300-week moving average? Virtually nil. And if it does,
Yeah.
buy all you can. Like, go all in at that point. What are the odds that it falls underneath the 200-week moving average? Well, that's happened consistently. It's happened like two or
Yeah.
three. It's like, okay,
But then it
cool.
wicks back.
Yep, because why? They're buying. They're
Buying
literally
it
coming
really
in and buying
hard.
it because it's under the
Yeah.
200-week moving average. So it's like, okay, cool. There will be people trying to like get it lower so they can buy more. There will be like whale games, but that's the history of Bitcoin, right? Since 2017, that's been the history of Bitcoin. Like just a bunch of whale games of retail getting sloshed around in the middle of that. And I'm okay with it because on a long enough time frame, up and to the right? So like we've had bear markets, but if you look at the last 8 to 12 years, up only, um, so that's my overall thesis for like what's going on and why. But we're in that part of the cycle now. I think I told you last time where stuff blows up, and that's going to cause really painful drops. So it's like the best thing you can do is either be in stable coins or Bitcoin, because those will be the two that drop the least, assuming you're in the right stablecoin project, right? Like if you're in
Yeah.
Tron USDD, you're probably not going to be okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking like I think I think that was the case. Yeah. Um because yeah, at least yeah. I was just thinking because like I bought XLM, but then I was looking at the Bitcoin price and like I was like 20% up on the XLM and like the Bitcoin I was still like I would have been like 5% down. But then like over time, I think like they end up kind of like finding each other,
Yeah.
in those things. But at the same time, man, I was looking at stellar lumens. How funny of a coincidence is it that like Bitcoin started around like last cycle around like the 3.7K and like lumens started around like the 3.7 cents and then lumens went up to 69 cents and then Bitcoin went up to 69,000 and then now XLM has fallen to 10 cents and I've been saying that Bitcoin's about to fall to 10 grand. Like I'm just like, dude, like it's straight up showing me what it's about to do. That's the one final thing in my mind being like, yeah, this could hit $10,000 Bitcoin because
Yeah.
like if it just slowly follows what the altcoins are doing and eventually like reconverges to the actual that it'll be 10,000. But it's not like it has to follow that forever. I was just noticing
Yeah.
little patterns in that.
I think that'll get front ran, man. I really do. Because there's
I do
still
too.
enough huge players. Like,
I like and they want to save their liquidity and whatever, but at the same time, you think that, and then someone like I was saying, like a bigger fish comes in and like dumps them.
yeah.
So it's hard to know, you know. I personally like people have been asking me, like I've been personally using this as an opportunity to
To
buy
acquire.
because I know,
Yeah.
like, look, within this range here, this is a decent buying opportunity. It's like I'm not going to buy the bottom anyways, so like this is a good range in general. And I
Yep.
saw like better risk to reward ratios in the
Yeah.
altcoins anyway, so.
So this is where the risk reward is massively in your favor if you're long term oriented, right?
Yeah,
Um,
long term or just altcoins, even short term. I think some of these are short term oversold enough to just get 100% pump off.
yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one wholeheartedly. I've just the fire is out in me right now. I'm pretty much in get back to work, get everything, make sure we're on stable footing, and then start just shoveling money in and start buying anything that I
Yeah.
think is
For a couple of
gonna
years
come
too, I
back.
think. Because
Yeah,
then like by the time a couple of years go, it's like you're doing this for a couple of years and then boom, and then
yeah,
you've had this. Because I think that's a good way to do it. Because I should have known this and thought about this a long time ago, but like someone finally a couple of years ago told me like, hey, millionaires are made in bear markets. And I was
yeah.
like, man, you're right. It's not like you start in a bull market and just start shoving money in and hope. It's like you got to be pre-prepared so that when it goes up,
You have to have your
you've been
position
spending
established.
thousands already. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because otherwise, it's like, where are you just going to come up with all the money at once? And it's like.
So that's I got a front row seat for that this cycle around because I came in during the bear last time, right? Like I was buying like not at the peak, but just slightly below. And I was buying all the way down and all the way sideways. And it's like, I literally bought, like, it wasn't a ton. Like, I remember I put $600 in at $3,200 Bitcoin, and then we were at 60 plus. And I was like, oh my God, this is what a 20X feels like, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that is exactly why you should be buying now if you have long-term orientation, right? Or if you're long-term oriented. Because like, I don't know how far the bottom is. No one does. And arguably it's going to get worse. Like just looking at macro and looking at these big players going out of business, they're going to cause the price to tank several more times. There's no getting around it. But like if you weather that, if you're not levered, right, if you're levered up to the gills, and if you can't sustain like $1,000 drop in price, you're not gonna make it. Like go pay off
Man,
your
I feel like the last Bitcoin drop wiped out every leverage thing. Like you couldn't have been 10% levered and made it during that. I feel like
yeah. So I completely and totally wholeheartedly believe you, because like it whipped down to 17K at one point, and I was like, that is massive destruction. Like capital is being wiped from the earth as we speak right now.
yeah. But it was still like the all-time high of last time, which is kind of funny to think about, right? It's still kind of an expensive asset, even though it's like feels so cheap, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you said to somebody 5 years ago, Bitcoin would be at $17,000 and it will be maximum fear, they'd have rolled over laughing because they'd have been like, "We made it! We made it!"
I know, straight up. Yeah. There's always this meme that floats around, and it's like the years 2045, like, and Bitcoin just fell from 30 million to 15 million. And the CNBC article is Bitcoin dead this time? It's like, yeah. Bitcoin at 15 million. Yeah,
Exactly. So it's like we're talking all this stuff, and it's like this is where we're at, and it's you have to keep that. This is my copium. Like, thank you for giving me the copium that I needed today. So
for sure.
Yeah, man, it's just rough right now. So like, this is what I would say gives us our best chance of success. Because I remember, like, before I left my other job, I was telling everybody, like, hey, this might be a bear market, and if you're worried about it, sell now. Like, please. Like, and people were like, oh, I don't know, I'm at break even, I don't want to sell. And I'm just like, well, we're here now. It's like, I tried to warn you. I told you to buy when it was at 6,000. I told you to buy when it was at 9,000. I told you to buy when it was 12,000. And then everyone came in with the FOMO rush at about 25 to 30 to 40. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you still have a chance to get multiples, right? Like that's on the table. But I feel like most of the people I know didn't. They weren't willing to time it, or they're like, hey, I'm going to do the bear market, even though you told me it's super brutal, Eric. And I was like, okay, I hope you make it. Because it's like, if you're not mentally prepared, if you don't have a long-term vision, you're going to sell for a loss. It's human nature. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I wish I could have gone back in time and warned people. And then side note, to anyone who has money in Celsius, I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but like, I'm so sorry. I hope I'm wrong, because I want you to get your money back. So I had a friend who had 2 Bitcoin in Celsius, and it was like, this is a normal dude like me. Our pay ranges are pretty similar. So it's like, I know that was the better part of a year's salary for that guy, and it's just like, F in the chat, boys. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, I mean, hey, best case scenario, they are just waiting for the prices to go up a little bit so that people can withdraw without them kind of like crashing, I guess, man. But
Yeah,
man,
dude,
I know this is really bad. It just reminds me in my mind, I'm like, yeah, counterparty risk is terribly dangerous.
Yeah.
And like crypto, the entire point of crypto is, hey man, you don't have to have counterparty risk. And then people are like, hey, for counterparty risk, I'll give you 4%. And then they're like, yay. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, in a raging bull market too. That was the other thing. Like, I remember when I was telling people about Celsius, full disclosure, I had money in Celsius for a long time.
I was looking at it. I was gonna use it actually. But I don't remember, like, you can use them in the US, but they're not a US company, right?
Yeah,
right.
You can totally use.
I was gonna use them for XRP or something, but I didn't.
Yeah, so you could totally use them as a retail investor up until like 2 months ago, right? Maybe it was
Okay.
actually less than that. And basically, the deal that they came to with the SEC is like you can grandfather in all the current retail investors, but no one new from retail can earn custody funds. And it's like this SEC knew what was coming or something. I don't know. That's kind of crazy. Um, but the thing about Celsius is I wouldn't straight up call it a Ponzi because I don't think it was a Ponzi.
No,
They were
not
using
literally.
DeFi
It's just an
strategies.
yeah.
Yeah, they were using DeFi strategies to make outsized returns and then throwing you the 6%, the 4%, the 2%, whatever you were getting, um, which is okay. I'm totally fine with that. But like when the market turns and you get into the teeth of the bear market, all of a sudden fundamentals absolutely matter because those very same strategies that made you those outside returns lost you epic amounts of monies on the downside. So it's like I was on social media, I was looking around and I saw Celsius is they're done. Like the staked ETH got them. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I'm getting out. Like literally the next day, like that morning, like that afternoon, I transferred everything out. 48 hours later, 48 hours later, they froze all withdrawals. Like
Smart
that same
move.
guy.
So what was it that triggered that thought in your mind, the staked ETH thing?
Honestly, it was Tetranode, like on social media, basically. I saw him on Twitter. Believe it or not, I got my news that saved me from Twitter.
Sure, yeah.
Um,
But like what was the news? Like what did that mean to you?
Basically he was saying that staked ETH had depegged, right? And that Celsius was effed 6 ways from Sunday because they had like $1.5 billion of staked ETH. And I've watched Celsius take hits for like $200-300 million during the Badger DAO hack. And from the outside in, they didn't have a hiccup. They just kept rolling along. The customers had no problems, but they absorbed it without issue. But like you can't take a multi-billion-dollar hit and be all right if you're Celsius. That was never going to be fine. So like I saw that and I was like, it's time to go. And so like I got my funds out, and then about 3 hours later, I started texting almost everybody I knew, like, hey, Celsius is suspect right now. I can't say that anything's going to happen. I can't say anything bad is going to happen, but there's definitely a non-zero. There's a small to medium probability that something bad's going to happen. I would get your money out. I got my money out yesterday. And I sent that text out. There's 3 texts. And I basically just started sending. And in 48 hours, all withdrawals are closed, right?
Yeah.
So like some people listened to me, some people didn't, but like it's just a matter of understanding like what is the core of this business. It's DeFi. It's using strategies to make outsized returns. What have my returns been like for the last 2 months? Oh, massively negative. Okay, so Celsius has probably got the same thing going.
Probably.
Is the risk worth the reward? And ultimately, that was the real question that got me into action. Like I can lose 100% of my principal because let's not get it twisted. This is an unsecured loan, right? Or I can risk that all for 3 or 4%. Like it would take me a lifetime to earn that back in interest. Get out. Get out immediately. Do
Yeah.
not hesitate. And I didn't. I tried to warn as many people as I can, and then they went under. So it's like,
So was staked ETH a product of Celsius, or was that like its own token?
so staked ETH is basically something that was going to happen because of all the ETH that was getting locked up for the merge, right?
Yeah.
So people wanted to be able to use that ether in some way. So staked ETH is just a derivative of ether, right?
People wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly, right? Like, oh, I have all this capital locked up. There's got to be a way to use it. So, like, yeah, they wanted their
That's
cake.
why you locked it up.
Mm-hmm. So, like, they would trade their staked ETH for, they would trade their ether that was locked up for staked ETH. So, like, when the unlock comes, they no longer have rights to that ether that's locked. Everyone assumed it was going to stay 1-to-1 or really close to it, and it lost peg like noticeably. I think it was down at like 94% or 92%. It could have gone lower, but I got to be more careful with my numbers to be bad like that. But it went down noticeably, right? It lost peg. That freaked Celsius out, and I'm pretty sure they became unsolvent. So what happened was they started transferring the stake ETH that they did have into like curve pools that's visible to literally everyone on DeFi. So they knew something was immediately wrong. And at that point, I think Tetranode made his point like, hey, they're selling ETH. Something's really wrong. They're effed 6 ways to Sunday. That's actually the post that he made. And
So
like,
were they holding? So they were holding staked ETH.
Yeah. So like what they were doing was, if you were a customer, you could stake your ETH with them, or you could just give them ETH and they would pay you 5%, a little over 5% return. Well, the staked ETH returns were over 7%, right? And they were for quite some time. So they're just pocketing that extra 2%, basically, right? The problem is when the bear market comes around, people don't want to eat that loss. So then they'll come back to Celsius and be like, hey, give me back my ETH. Well, you're not giving them staked ETH. You're not agreeing to stake your ETH with them. They have to give you back your principal.
So they staked it for you. And then
pretty
this
much
thing they staked it into lost peg, and then they weren't able to give their basically loan back.
Yeah, they weren't able to get the redemption. Yeah. So like that tanked them, right? So
I mean, in reality, like I see why the SEC is taking them into being like, yeah, only accredited investors, because in reality, like that's a hedge fund.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that's literally just a hedge fund being like, here's my strategy.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah,
terrible returns for a hedge fund.
Yeah, my heart bleeds for those guys. So
yeah, me too, especially because it's a centralized company, and I had high hopes for it in general, just because it's like I want that kind of sustainable yield to come from every coin, you know, like I would love that idea, but I guess they just did it in a model that was kind of messed up.
Yeah, so what got Celsius that was super disingenuous is like they were saying, hey, come join us, unbank yourself. Get out of banks. They're screwing you, right? Meanwhile, they were a bank. They were doing bank-like things like the whole time, right? Like in DeFi, everything's transparent. You know what's going on, right? Like you can see it on a blockchain, right? That's how Tetranode knew they were screwed, right? Because he could see on a blockchain, okay, they have this much staked ETH. They're selling their staked ETH to try to get to meet their redemptions, basically, because people were taking their ETH out of Celsius and selling it, probably in all likelihood. And they couldn't, there's no way they were going to meet that demand. So they're instantly underwater. Like, I don't even know how many billions or millions of dollars, because they couldn't meet that demand and it was draining all their funds. So they had to start selling the staked ETH, which didn't have the liquidity to support all those withdrawals. So then it started losing peg. That's also the same way they knew Three Arrows. Was it Three Arrows or 3AC? I can't remember which right now. They started doing the exact same thing. Like they couldn't meet their redemptions and they were starting to get liquidated. So the moment you take your money out of Curve, everyone sees that clear as day, right? Like
especially large amounts. I mean, like I think bots get triggered and then they tweet about it automatically, and then whale alert.
So that was like the death nail. Like, oh smack, they're actually market selling this stuff instead of doing OTC, because it's like they have to cover their redemptions immediately. They don't have time to wait for an OTC deal to get put together. So that all happened.
Well, which is interesting to think about, because like in my mind, I was like, you would think they could just open up a line of credit.
I wonder if they already had done that and this was their
right. Actually, you're right. They maxed that out and they were like, no, we need to sell now. Like, because our credit line is dependent on collateral, and our collateral is now half. So I could imagine that. So
it's just like the more you think about it, the worse. Like the more rational it was just to get your funds out, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I like that thought too, especially because like during the throes of a bear market like that, like stuff is going to be a lot more painful than just a simple little, like even a 30% correction on the way up. Like it handled that.
Yeah, no problem.
Right.
Yeah, because they were probably very deeply invested, like before broke 14K, right? Celsius has been around since 2018. And I mean, I did my homework on them. I was like, oh, they survived the last bear market. Oh, this is going to be fine. And then everyone's like, well, what happens on the way down? Because I remember like someone actually tagged me on a Reddit post that I had made. And I said, hey, Celsius is going to give you X amount of returns, basically. What was I saying?
Well, it seems like the appropriate place to park it for a bear market, right?
Yeah, for a bull market, best place ever to park, because it's guaranteed returns, or especially if you're not going to do any of the DeFi stuff, because that's where they're making the majority of their money, I think. Um, but in a bear market, you got to realize the inverse is true as well. So I was like, this person was like, what happens to my returns during the bull market? I'm like, don't worry about that. Celsius has been holding Bitcoin since at least 2018 in a bear market. Let that marinate on your brain. So like they're basically sitting on anywhere from 6 to 10 to 20x profits basically when they were giving out all these yields. And I said, as far as the bear market, these are the questions you need to ask yourself in a bear market. And those are my exact words. And someone tagged me and is like, oh, we're in the middle of the bear market now. And they're shutting down basically. And I was like, oh man. So like I did have the foresight to realize this was a thing. And that post was from a year ago. So it's like, um, yeah, it's just I wanted
Well, it makes
Celsius
me wonder.
survivable, right?
Celsius,
Mm-hmm.
Celsius isn't the only one though. There's a
Yeah.
couple of other ones. Is
So
Nexo
there's
having any problems?
as far as we know, no. So Nexo actually offered to buy Celsius distressed assets, I'm sure at a steep discount, right? Like you don't do that unless you are sitting in a position of power, right? Like
Okay.
you were responsible with your funds and operating your position, like you're operating your company, and now you're at the point where you can take advantage of all the forced sellers and distressed sellers, right? So Celsius, I mean Nexo is relatively okay from what I understand. The other big one is BlockFi. That's the big one in the
Right.
US. So BlockFi, I think, is going to get punched in the face by three arrows going down, right? I think they're going to survive, but like I am fairly certain they had a line of credit out. Three Arrows had a line of credit, or they had some kind of deal going with BlockFi because it was Celsius and BlockFi were the two major U.S. lending desks for crypto, basically. So
Well, isn't Celsius in Europe?
yeah, Celsius is kind of everywhere. So they're in Europe. They're in like
But I mean, like it's based out of Europe, isn't it? I thought it was like a European-based thing.
they have a U.S. base here, and then like
Oh,
they were
okay.
opening bases in other places. So they had stuff in like Israel. They had stuff in like there's another few foreign places I can't think of off the top of my head, but
Okay.
yeah, there was Europe
For
too.
some
But they
reason,
were
I had it in my mind that it was like a foreign company. Okay.
no, Alex Mashinsky is like, oh, they were. I feel like they're also in like Ukraine or something like that. I can't remember the exact deals, but they were international basically. But they had for U.S. purposes, they were U.S. based, right? So like
Okay.
that's what they were doing, and then they were branching out to these other places. BlockFi is US based. I believe they only stayed inside the United States. So, like, these are the two that people are looking at the most. And I was helping people take money out of BlockFi like literally the weekend after Celsius paused withdrawals. So, because
How is
like,
BlockFi looking to you?
as far as I understand, okay for now. But like, we're not going to know the full depth of what happened with Three Arrows for quite some time. Because no one's going to be like, hey, I was foolish to invest with these guys and lost half our working capital, right? Like, no one's going to do that. So everyone's going to be hush hush about like what they lost and what decisions they made related to those companies. But like, as long as no one's saying, "Hey, I'm insolvent because of these people," at which point you're already screwed because they've already frozen withdrawals at that point. Um, you're not going to know who was affected. And I think all this stems back from Luna because Celsius was deep in Luna. And I got to think, I know Three Arrows was deep in Luna as well because I feel like they were some of the market makers for Luna. Like they were helping
Mhm.
maintain the peg from what I understand. Um, so once the peg broke, like if they started throwing funds to try to help restore that peg, throwing funds in, all that money, all that capital was lost, right? So like I feel like between Luna breaking down. I know that hurt Celsius. It probably murdered Three Arrows, or yeah, Three Arrows. And then the stuff with Celsius going on now, and then literally within 2 weeks, like Three Arrows is saying they're out of business too, like or they're not. They go silent on Twitter, and you see multiple other accounts saying, "Hey, we liquidated them for this platform." Who is saying that? Oh yeah, BlockFi said they liquidated Three Arrows. So like
Oh, really?
yeah. So like and then there was another company that it's around the block or something eight. So I can't remember the name of it. They said that Three Arrows basically took $1 million out of their working account to meet a margin call effectively, right? So like all the stuff is basically guaranteed for sellers now and probably for the next few months down the road while restructuring and bankruptcy stuff happens. So like that's the reason I think nobody in crypto is going to start throwing huge amounts of money into alts or anything like that, because all these companies, they would have had large bags of alts, they would have had large bags of Bitcoin and ETH, and that has to get sold to meet their creditors, the people that they owe money to. That's what's going on in my head, and why I'm not super eager to go heavy in the alts, and why I think it's going to be down only and sideways at best.
In fact, on the charts, I'm not seeing huge buy volumes showing up. So it's not yet. I'm still taking the opportunity to, like, right now, I'm not buying any more XLM, but like if it falls below 10 cents, I'll probably buy more.
Yeah. Because like there's a certain point when it's just like,
it's like I can get a lot of
how much lower can it go? Huh?
Exactly. It's like it kind of like I don't know. I'm really not even looking at it in terms of dollar value anymore. To me, it's more like now I have this many XLM. Like that, you know, like once you get to that point, it almost like feels different. I don't know.
Yeah. So to me, I'm still in the dollar world because that's where my focus is. Like it's where I pay my bills at. The things that I want to buy are going to be in dollars. So like I still always think in dollars. I think the best way to really have it, if you're super long-term focused and you think Bitcoin's going to make it, because we both think it's reached that escape velocity. What is your BTC ratio? Like, what is your BTC comparative to that alt? So like, if the Bitcoin dominance is doing, if your alt is losing value in terms of BTC, why do you have it? Right? At a minimum, you should at least.
I know. You know why though, man? Dude, you know why?
Because it's going to rebound and begin to rally.
Yes, it's because it takes 3 weeks to undo 5 years of downtrend. That's why. It's because for those 5 years of downtrend, it's like, yes, it's terrible, but like you have to be in it for that, because you don't know when those 3 weeks are going to come suddenly, where it's like, you know,
I've seen
a remake and more.
Yeah, I remember there was a post. Like I remember seeing actually a few YouTubers talk about it. Like for alts, like you were saying, like basically 3 weeks out of an entire year make the difference between alt valuations and Bitcoin evaluations.
It really is that, yeah. And other than those kind of few weeks,
it's just
alts just bleed against it, but then they go boom, and then it's like they bleed against it forever. It's like a sawtooth wave. In fact, I was actually writing this down over here in a little sticky note, because I was trying to think about, like, I was watching last cycle, and I was trying to think about like which coins were pumping first and see like what the charts would look like, to see, like, I was trying to measure, like, I was basically saying like this time it was Cardano first instead of Litecoin, because like last time like Litecoin pumped, and then like a couple of days later like Bitcoin hit its peak. But basically what I wrote here was like 27 to 40 days of pump from bottom to top. Every altcoin pumped from their bottom. So it's like once we had this like major last crash like we're having right now, like IOTA went to like I think like 40 cents or something at the time, and then it pumped to like $5. You know what I mean? So like, but that took between 27 and 40 days, and every coin did that.
Are you talking about when Bitcoin topped in December and then altcoins topped in like January of 2018?
Yes. That took like 3 weeks for like, if you measure like where they were, because they fell before that. Right before that, they but if you watch them, they like from then they basically slowly, they just didn't go lower than that, but they slowly, and then, you know, from basically like from the November time frame, that's when the low was, and it just never recovered that low. It just consistently, slowly, until it took off finally in January, like you're saying. But like, but the major actual like movement was like just a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I don't mean to disagree with you, because we agree about a lot of stuff.
No, yeah, no, like, and honestly, I changed my mind sometimes. So like, I want to listen to you for sure, you know?
So like, if you look at that altcoin rally, and I feel like it did it even the cycle before last, like before 2018, like that all happened like within a month of the top, right? So like, even
I know that's what I'm thinking now. I'm like, man, now it's late.
Yeah,
like, exactly. Now it's late and not coming, maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of my point there. It's like, oh, it should have happened like January at best, or July, June.
I know.
This is kind of, I don't know if that's going to happen now. I think at this point, when you have the mindset, though, I have this many XLM, once again, other than the Bitcoin comparative thing that I just threw out there, that's a really healthy mindset to have, right? Because if it's like, okay, I'm getting this amount of coin, right? I want my portfolio to be have this amount of XLM. I want this amount of Litecoin. I want this amount of Bitcoin. I want this amount of ETH. I want this amount of XRP because I know you're a huge XRP guy.
I am, dude. I've never sold an XRP. I've
Yep.
never sold an XRP.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like if you're building that type of portfolio, you should be buying, right? Like me and you, like despite how it feels intellectually, based off previous history, based off the macro, based off what happens when the Fed finally breaks something and they have to go fix it by printing a bunch of money because those are the only tools they really have. Which
Yeah.
asset's going to do the best? Yeah, it's going to be crypto. It's going to be what you were talking about. And maybe there's a few coins that we don't know about because they don't exist yet. Like they're just now starting to be thought of by their founders. Keep an eye on those too. But like in the end, when the money printers turn on, if you're already in position, you should be setting like realistic, one, this is going to be my moon bag. I'm always going to have this amount of these coins. And then these are going to be my sell points. So like, let's say it quadruples in value. I'll just go ahead and take half, right? That way I paid myself for all this time I spent in this horrific bear market, right? And then maybe I'll take another quarter at, X amount, right? If I get a 10X, I'll take half again, something like that. And I think those are very realistic deals. Maybe not 10X on Bitcoin, because I don't think Bitcoin's going to have that much of unless it's the Cambrian explosion, right? But
That moment.
mm-hmm, like the utility deal where people are like, oh, the Fed's going to turn it on again. And we just had this record inflation the last time this happened. Yeah, I need to opt out. I'm going to go try this electronic digital currency thing. Right.
Institutional FOMO.
Yeah. That's when I think like that sovereign wealth funds, they start dipping that pinky finger in there, that pinky toe, and all of a sudden things start getting exponential real fast.
You know what
So
I bet? I bet those people who run the funds are buying the stuff in their personal portfolio.
oh, I
And then they're
guarantee you
going to
they
load
are.
up and
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to buy it for the real thing and pump their own bags. Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you that's what's happening, right? Like
Yeah.
you saw that even with the Fed. I think it's human nature, right? So like the Fed presidents that retired in scandal, they basically said, hey, we've been trading the stock market. You caught us. We're selling here. That was the top of the market,
The
right?
top, man. After a 12-year bull run, yes. They
Yes,
were
like
like,
the
for ethics
very
reasons, I'm out. Like Shark Tank.
yes,
I gotta be
yes.
out on this one.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I feel
It's
so bad about what I've done. I'm just gonna take my gains and step away into this sunset on
yeah, man.
personal island. Yeah, man. So like that's human nature. I think the reason these funds get curious and interested is because everybody's made a killing on this stuff, right? And they're like, oh man, I mean, I don't want to risk my career, but I'm going to get rich on this stuff now. And then when next cycle comes around, I'm going to get my fun into this thing. And then we're all going to get paid. Right.
I
And
can
I think
imagine that.
I truly believe that happened in 2017. And then it turned around on that 4-year cycle and happened in 2021. And you saw the explosive growth. What happens
Yeah.
in 2025?
Bad.
Right. Like, and
Well,
then we're sitting
bar
here
any kind
behind.
of weird,
Hmm?
minus any kind of weird macroeconomic effects. But
Yeah.
yeah, the next cycle,
I just
hopefully.
I gotta think that like in 4 years, I say go back, not 4 years, in a matter of let's say a couple years, the worst of this stuff is gonna be behind us. Like maybe we're in like a really kind of semi-dystopian world where Africa's having some famine type stuff going on, like the euro and Japanese yen rendered have been brought low by their own really bad inflationary policies. And the US dollar is kind of like the last bastion for right now, right? And people are looking,
For
actually, the
right now,
Chinese
yeah.
yuan and the dollar are going to be like the last bastions of like safe fiat money, basically. Um, and then people are going to look around. It's like, okay, if I go with the Japanese yen, they're going to manipulate and steal my wealth. They have a long history of doing that. If I go with the US dollar, they have undisciplined monetary policies, but they're probably better actors than the Japanese yuan. Or I can go with Bitcoin, which has programmatic, no one jacks with that monetary policy. No one's trying to inflate it away to nothing. And I gotta think that's gonna be more and more and more attractive as the US basically starts stealing from other countries, and the Chinese yuan is ran by China, who is really good at being super controlling and super
Yeah,
authoritarian.
it's not a
Yeah.
smart idea to park a ton of capital into that
Yeah, because
communist
they
party
can
doorway.
also take your funds and then laugh at you when you try to get them back, right? They've done that
Yeah.
before as well. So
And
it's
we've
like,
also noticed that the Western societies tend to do that too, apparently, though, with like any Canadian trucker protest or
yeah,
anything.
they just started, but like it's kind of scary when you see that type of behavior infiltrating like democracies, like full on bright burning democracies. That's when you know, like, oh, things are gonna get rough, right? So
Yeah.
like you need a way to like protect your funds, and these are all, if you really subscribe to Bitcoin and you really start thinking about like, okay, how can I protect myself from counterparties? Like it's gonna be Bitcoin. It's like the number one way to do it, right? Like there are
Long
gonna be,
term. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
The safest long-term bet, in my opinion. Yeah.
yeah,
I
man.
mean, there might be things that outperform it, but in terms of just like either stability or padding your portfolio or just like keeping your value safe over time so that you can tell the universe the same thing now, that you can store the energy that you're putting into it. That's the way that I'm seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, so random question. I don't know what you've got written down or anything like that, but like I've asked you like what coins you were into. I don't know if you want to go here on the podcast and say that stuff here, but like I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious. Like you
Or
don't
just like
have
which
to.
about which ones like I'm literally buying or which ones that like I think are interesting or like
Let's go with both for right now. Because like for
yeah, dude,
me,
like
I'm
so
basically stables and Bitcoin. And that's all I really care about right now. But go ahead.
stables to Bitcoin, you're saying for the moment?
Yeah, stables and
So
Bitcoin are what I'm looking at.
I am picking up right now. Stuff is low enough that I'm looking at layer ones. Um, like Algorand, I think it's super cheap right now. I'll probably pick up a
Yeah.
decent amount of Algorand. Um, I like this. I like the coin. Like it's basically like it could be it's a version of Ethereum that should be better, you know. And it
Yeah.
has a lot of development on it, and like and some of the stuff on there, like I want to buy the small coins using the Algorand because some of those coins are tiny enough that like you could see 1,000 times gain on accident, you know, in a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years maybe, you know, if they stick around. So those I'm looking at for layer ones. But like oh, you know what? I told you I didn't sell an XRP. I did though, but I didn't sell them for dollars. I turned them into X punks,
Okay.
and I only
Yeah.
turned like a
Fair.
small part of the portfolio into it. But like, so I'm kind of looking at like those XRPL, like the XRP ledger, layer two tokens. So a couple of them that I have on here are like Songbird, um, SGB, which is another one. Wait, do I have two of these? Well, I need to actually look at that later. I don't know why I have Songbird and SGB. I don't know what I bought there. I need to look at that again. But then I have Corium and I have Xpunks and I have Sologenic. Not really a lot of any of them. Some of them I think were airdropped to me, but like
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff right now that I'm like looking into new, like for new purchases. Especially because some of these, if you go to .com and then you go to the DEX, I don't know if you've clicked it before, but like there's a ton of these really, really, really small coins. Some of them have market caps under $100,000. You can go in there
Whoa.
with like $200 and move the market. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's the kind of stuff that I kind of want to play with experimentally, just because it's like you can cause stuff to happen in those markets, and like it doesn't have to go the way that you want it to. Because it's like, for example, like you were saying, like if I just start to buy a bunch of coins, they could use me as exit liquidity. But if you do it in a certain way, you can get like, especially if like Bitcoin is going up and the XRP is going up, and it's kind of like adds to the FOMO or like it adds to the buy pressure. You can get some of these coins to be like I could probably manipulate them myself, you know. You know what I mean?
So like micro caps is the term, right? So yeah.
Micro cap, like
Yeah.
micro, yeah, because some of these are basically like they're so new that like I've never heard of them at all, but then like you can find
How
like
do
an
you buy
interview with
that? Is
them.
that strictly on XRP?
Yes, they're so new that you can only buy them on a DEX.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and if you go to the .com website, they describe each of those coins. There's just a whole page, and it'll tell you about the coins. So it's like, or the tokens in this case, more pedantically. So they'll be like, yeah, here's the market cap, here's the team, here's the description of this token, blah blah blah. Some of them are interesting, man. some of them actually have technology behind them, and some of them aren't even small. Some of them are actually like large coins that I've never heard of, that are like, that are doing really technologically advanced stuff, or have backing, or like have like $1 billion market cap, and it's just sitting there, no one's heard of it. Very interesting stuff. But then there's like tiny projects, and the liquidity is so low that I was thinking of like one strategy you could do where you can buy more than the amount of the so you know how there's the order book of like the buys and sells. You can buy more of the token than exists in the buy orders. So you could buy it, make the price go up a little bit, but like that doesn't really matter. You just buy up this whole amount of supply, and then you just market sell, and it'll sell out the entire order book of buys. Like like these markets are so new that there's free money in them still. You understand what I'm saying? They're inefficient. Like there's stuff that's in there that should not exist. That like if a bot saw it, it would fix it immediately. Or if a person who had enough money and the expertise to do it, they could like get the free money out of it, and then it would look different in there. Which is kind of an interesting little thing to look at, because a lot of times it's like these are so speculative that like no one even buys these or knows what they are or anything. But then like as a podcast, and not a ton of people watch it, but like enough watch it that every time they talk about a new coin on there, it pumps like 100% in the day, and then it falls back down.
Yeah, because people exit, right? Like, oh man, I doubled my money.
Yeah, people get in, people hype, people get in, people buy it. Yeah, but it really only takes like 100 views on their podcast to pump the price by like 2x, which is crazy. You know. This actually, here, I had this thought in my mind. I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, because people get tricked by charts a lot. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying about like how like the altcoins get outperformed by Bitcoin, except for like those small moments. But like my brother was telling me a couple of years ago, like, hey, like he was like, hey, I have like 25 grand or something, and I want to put it into some investments for the long term, you know? And so he's like, I'm going to take half of it and I'm going to put it into whatever, you know, that E-Trade stuff, right? And so he was looking at these charts and graphs, but not in terms of like candlesticks and stuff. He was looking at trends, because he was like, I want to see something that's going uptrend, so I can have a return on it, right? And so he was like, okay, this thing is an uptrend, the like this long arrow going up, and you know he's getting whatever small percents a year. But then what I realized is that would be logical if you've learned math and stuff, but the way that markets work, that's the complete wrong answer. And I bet those things are put in there on purpose to trick people like him into thinking that they're a decent investment, when in reality, those are actually the most risky ones that are specifically going to like deflate with the rest of the retail market. And the actual good investments are the ones that basically everyone tells you are terrible, and then everyone like, or no one's even talking about, and they're just dying in price until they're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the stuff that's actually growing slowly and steadily and doing well over time is literally what they want you to buy from them, the way that I'm seeing it, you know? Whereas like the really, really actual outsized returns are stuff that doesn't do well for most of the time.
So you're saying stuff that's been just almost programmatically like step laddered up over time. You're saying it's kind of like what they want you to buy, basically.
Yeah,
it's putting the distraction out, what they want.
Because it seems like the most obvious answer. It's like, yeah, I picked the one that goes up, you know? Whereas then you pick the one that goes down, and then it goes up, and everyone else wasn't expecting it, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing for meme coins.
Yeah. So that feels like more of a, what we're talking about is a P versus player environment, PvP. So like what you're talking about there is like a PvP environment where it's like you look at a chart and it's like, all right, this seems like a great buy, but what you don't understand is there's been some whales manipulating that chart just to get you to come in, buy, just to get retail to come in and buy so they can dump their bags on it and exit with profit. So that,
and sometimes they're long trends.
Yeah, I think that is typical like bear market behavior, where it's like as soon as something starts pumping, like you need to get out because someone's coming to dump it real quick. You know, like you can't leave your money there and expect it to continue to trend upward, because like again, the rally gets sold off and you lose.
Yeah.
The only time I think
what about like Tesla? Think about like Tesla stock, right? Tesla stock
It's
was
like half,
extremely
right?
volatile. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
I was just saying,
Oh,
like,
sorry.
just look at the Tesla stock chart and compare it to like the S&P 500, right? Like, just for the last like however 10 years, 5 years, even, you know. I don't know how long Tesla's been around now. Actually, now it's probably been around for almost 10 years now, if it hasn't. Because I remember
Yeah.
like being in high school at some point and going to before Teslas came out, they had like a Tesla gallery. Do you remember those? Where like you could go and
No,
like
I do not.
see what they looked like before the Teslas even existed. Yeah,
Yeah.
like they hyped up Tesla before they were even allowed to be legally sold in Texas and other places. So I got to see the gallery and stuff. But that was that long ago when the stock was basically really undervalued and really not doing well and really volatile still and really kind of all over the place. And you know, and at the same time, the S&P was just slowly going up, making everyone be like, I'm just gonna buy the S&P as usual. And then the one stock that actually turns out to be pretty good, or like AMC, or like the GME stock, you know, it's GME, right? GameStop, yeah. Those charts don't look good. Think about it, like it was short squeezed. That means it was
Yeah.
really, really bad. That means that people were shorting it because it was so low that like it was that low until it wasn't. You know,
So
that's how
I
I'm
feel
seeing
like
it. I'm like, yeah.
what you're talking about is basically the performance of small market cap stocks, right? Which are
Was
extremely
GME
volatile.
that small?
Well, like Tesla, for example, though, right? Like that was a small company for a very long time. And Elon
Yeah.
Musk stepped in, took over that company, basically stole it from the founders, and then proceeded to like do Elon like things with it. GME and GameStop was, I don't remember the size of the company, but like it wasn't a small cap at all. But like
Right.
what was killing that was it was bucking the trend as we were going increasingly digital and doing everything online. That was a brick and mortar store, like
Yeah.
selling video games for sometimes outdated game systems. And it's like,
Mm.
oh, yeah, this is going to die, right?
And their revenue model wasn't even based on the games. It was based off of like the weird other stuff they try to sell you that no one really buys. And
Yeah,
you know,
in the store because no one gives a shit, right? Like it was going to
yeah,
die, right? So what ended up happening was the GameStop, they were so heavily leveraged and like didn't have the collateral to really cover their leverages that like any swing in price, anything at all remotely to the upside was going to destroy them. And that's where the guy named Roaring Kitty, like on Reddit, he saw that. Like he was able to somehow track it. And he convinced a bunch of people to go in on these companies and buy and like short squeeze them to kingdom come. So like I feel like what you're talking about is two separate things, but the
I
end
I,
result
I
is
agree.
actually the same. Yeah.
Yeah, there are like all these phenomena out there that kind of add
Yeah.
up to the same similar like, hey, like
The result is the
maybe not all
same,
good
but two
investments are like,
different processes. Yeah. Um,
or maybe here's the thing, like here's how they're similar though. When we're looking for returns that are outsized, that means that you must buy something that is undervalued so that when it at least goes to normal value, either it'll overshoot and go above value, or you still made outsized returns because it was undervalued.
just
So
return to
both
the
of
mean.
these things that we're
Yeah,
talking
of
about,
course.
like the GME was undervalued because they shorted it so hard. Like
Hmm.
Tesla was probably undervalued because it was so new, no one really knew even know how to value it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'll agree with that 100%. So, like, what you're talking about is a mean regression, basically. I want to
Yeah,
say,
yeah, the mean reversal to the mean, yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So,
Yeah,
like, yeah, mean
return to
reversal.
the
So,
mean.
like, yeah, that's 100% of what like speculative investing is for, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
trying to do is get those outside returns. Um, so yeah, I can see that. Like in crypto, it's a lot easier because like you said it earlier on, the market is not efficient here at all, right? So somebody with the real tools and knowledge who knows how to exploit this stuff, it's just basically bend over and pick up the money and then like walk away
It
and wait.
is. Yeah, there's free money in there everywhere if you know
Yeah.
what to look for. Yeah.
So like, dude, I applaud you because like for the longest time, I was just literally the definition of dumb retail, right? Like I was just buying and hoping it would go up over time. And now that I've like kind of stuck a foot into the DeFi world and started to understand like the what a market cap is. Earlier on, you were talking about fully diluted market cap. When we were playing market cap games and talking about token Ponzinomics is what I joke around and call it. Like when you lock up a supply like that, like you can create any price you want basically, right? But like sooner or later, there's always something on the back end. There's a price to pay. So like the fully diluted market cap would be massively higher than like what you're actually seeing on the actual price or whatever.
I don't know if you've
Sooner or later,
seen
that
this
supply
before.
unlocks.
So there's examples of this that you might think are interesting. If you go to CoinMarketCap and you look up these meme coins on the BNB, like the BSC smart chain thing, you know, the Binance smart chain. If you look up those coins, you'll notice something interesting about those coins, because CoinMarketCap won't tell you the market cap, but you can go to the PancakeSwap website and you could look up the actual market caps of the coins. And some of the coins' market caps, have you seen how high they get?
I'm sure they're insane, but keep going.
Hundreds of trillions, man.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's actually a conflict of interest of what you just mentioned. So CoinMarketCap is owned by Binance. Like,
Yes,
of course.
yes, they are. Yeah.
They're
So
not
they'll
going to
show
show
you the
you
coins,
that.
not the market cap.
Yeah.
They'll be like, look, this coin has had this certain price. I'm not telling you the market cap though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is hilarious, man.
They'll tell you the number of coins though. And then so it's like you'll kind of be like, oh, okay. Because it'll be like there's 15 quadrillion coins out there, or, you know, like sometimes it's even more, you know. So it's like sometimes that kind of gives it away when you're like, okay, I see what's going on.
That is hilarious.
But like at some point,
like your average person's not going to do that. They're never going to look at that, right? Like, oh, there's a lot of coins out there. That's a lot of zeros. Oh, it's only 5 cents. Okay, cool. Let's buy it. You know, not realizing it's going to take billions of dollars of value to raise the price of that.
Well, it was funny to think like you know, it was really popular that I didn't even think was really popular. People liked the idea of owning millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of coins for like $5. So like that was one of the things that I think pumped Shiba Inu, not only the whales and stuff, but just like people liked owning. They were like, dude, I have 300 million of this coin. People liked that.
So the term that I learned was coin vanity, basically, right? No one wants to own 0.001 of a Bitcoin, but they love having, you know, 250,000 Shiba, right? Like makes you feel good. Like, yeah, I have all of this, effectively nothing, but I have all of these 250,000 coins.
I have so many nothings. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But yeah,
but it's not nothing, man, because you can't buy infinite nothings for $0 if they're Shiba Inu, because that's not nothing. I don't know. People are like, oh, like Bitcoin's worth nothing. It's like, really? Can I have one?
Yeah, give me one, like, please.
Just give me one if it's nothing. If it's nothing, you're just being rude.
Yeah. I guess I was being a little rude. Sorry about that. But yes, it is. Yeah, it's people like having whole coins, like large amounts of coins, right? But it's just like, what is the market going to value that at, you know, 5 years down the road? And I'm just like, this doesn't look good, because once again, that fully diluted market cap, it's not looking good for the home team in the long run, right?
And that the thing is, that's not only important for meme coins. Some major metaverse coins are highly inflationary too. Many major coins in general are going to be highly inflationary, so you got to stake them. But some coins out there that you can't even stake are going to be highly inflationary. I'm pretty sure Gala coin, like only 1/8 of the coins are in circulation right now.
Yeah,
like it's a big deal.
Yeah, I believe you, man. It's hard to find those projects. So like this actually speaks to the linearness of the older projects, because they've actually got most of their market cap out in circulation. There's not going to be any more Ponzi-nomic games being played with that. It's just a matter of what is the sell pressure like.
Also, the older coins were way more into deflationary tactics. That's why a lot of them were pre-mined, or a lot of them had like deflationary stuff. The inflationary stuff is rather new. And it comes from the place of people wanting to have passive yield, because that basically started happening in the DeFi space. And then they were like, look at all these other ways you could do passive yield. You know, that was really popular, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what sucked me in for CVX. And I don't know if you've looked at the chart, but down only. So I told you earlier on, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I was like, that price is going to dump, and it did. So it went from $58, and I think we hit a low of like $339 or something like that. And
so like, can you remind me of the utility of CVX? Do people have to buy CVX in order to do the voting or to change the vote?
Yeah, so honestly it's a governance token, which is
Okay.
already kind of a red flag now that I'm saying it out loud in my head, out loud outside of my head. But
Is it given as a reward as well? Because it is, right? Okay. If
mildly,
those,
yeah. So there's only going to be like 100 million CVX or something like that. There's not
okay.
a lot of them, and then from there, you have to own and you have to vote lock it in order to receive the bribes, right? The bribes are a form of passive income paid out to you by projects that are wanting incentivized liquidity for their pools, right? So, like,
Okay.
if you own CVX and you're just somebody like me who wants to get the bribes, companies will come in and give you their proprietary token that you can just sell for whatever you want. Or if you believe in the company, right? Let's say Frax, 'cause I like Frax a lot. Frax will give you FXS, which is their share token,
Oh,
basically.
wow.
The opposite of Luna in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Or the
Now,
opposite
especially
of
now that they're
USD.
fully collateralized, I think they're,
Yeah.
or they're trying to be. In
Yeah.
fact, like Frax, do you stake your FXS? Because the yield
I
on
don't
that is
have
super
any right
high.
now. I
Okay.
will be staking it, yes, 100%. But like Frax is one of the ones that I have my eye. FSX Frax shares is one of the things that I have my eye on for next cycle, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm watching Frax. I really want it to work. I'm a little bit kind of skeptical about it now, but
mhm.
I think it has a chance to make it.
Yeah,
I don't think there's enough unwinding in it because it's like the way someone put it right now, they were like, no, there's enough on-chain collateral right now for people to get their money back. So I
yeah.
was like, okay,
The way
that's
they
not a
got it
problem
set
then.
up is like even if there is a bank run, the mechanics de-incentivize a bank run, right? Everybody gets out at the same price, and then two, even if there was a 100% bank run, like everybody would be able to get their money and get out. And they have it set up sustainably like that intentionally because they don't want to be another Luna. It was always like that. And plus, they
Yeah.
own enough of the Frax shares themselves to
Mm.
prevent that from even happening. Like they would always be able to cover it because, like, let's say hypothetically, they have 60% of all the Frax shares in existence or 70% of all the Frax shares in existence. That means there's only 30% that could ever be dumped on the market. They're going to be able to cover that using their reserves of Frax
Yeah,
that we
it's a good point
so
too.
like, they were never going to become insolvent. Like it's not actually possible. Whereas Luna and UST, it was the exact opposite. They were almost never solvent to begin with. They were just relying on
Right.
growing so fast that if there was a run, they could meet it momentarily to put the run down, and then they would go back to growing again. And then
Hmm.
what we saw was in a bear market when things are going down, oh, all of a sudden you don't even have the funds to meet the momentary bank run. So then you die, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the difference between Frax and UST. But like there also the other thing about Frax is it gives you yield, right? Like actual sustainable yield. So that's why I like Frax. And I think they're a huge part of the Curve CVX
Yeah.
ecosystem because of that, because like they can use the incentives or the curve they're getting from CVX to go power other parts of the ecosystem as well. So like they have multiple forms of income. They're already a profitable company, right? They're generating X amount of revenue, which is not super common with new projects. Normally, new projects just lose money no matter what. And Frax is past that point. But back to the point of the bribe it system. So with the bribe system, other protocols or DAOs pay you in their native tokens. And then if you don't have any faith in them, you just sell them for USD. And it's literally printing money for you in that scenario, right? Um, the other thing is the emissions from CVX drop over time. So like if you look at the distribution curve, it's like this basically, and we're just entering the hard 90-degree turn. So the emissions are going to be dropped off dramatically for CVX, but the emissions for all these other core protocols and DAOs that are using the CVX platform, that's going to stay the same, right? Um, the value, the US dollar value dropped because we're in a bear market, but they're still dishing out a huge amount of tokens for you to sell. So, like, as long as CVX continues to hold the lion's share of all the curve in existence, which I think they do, they're probably around 50%. That gives them a huge advantage as far as like a moat. So it's very hard for another protocol to overtake them in terms of the amount of curve they own. And then
Yeah.
also you have the advantage of I guess, yeah, it just creates a moat for all intents and purposes where it's hard for them to get overtaken. So like Curve in itself, their model, because remember there's Curve and then there's CVX, right?
Yeah.
Curve itself has a moat. It seems like it's not going away unless regulators come for it one way or the other, which
Yeah. Well, do you think GMX could outgrow Curve? Because I was hearing some people say that like it's being used more for the non-slippage and stuff like that.
yeah. So I think GMX can grow a lot. I don't know if it can take on Curve because I think the thing that
Hmm.
kills GMX is they don't have like oracles. Like the way it's set up is they can't really become the dominant force in like DeFi because they're not getting all their info. They're not getting on-chain information from like the real world. They're just borrowing it from other places inside of DeFi. I know that sounds awkward to say, but like that's the way I understand it. Now
Yeah.
it can grow substantially from where it's at right now. Like there's room for outsized gains and returns, assuming it survives the bear market. The other thing I noticed about GMX is it seems to be geared for bull markets. Like the thing that can kill GMX, and don't get me wrong, like I love me some GMX, I own it right now, is like if the market continues down only and a bunch of whales come in and they all short simultaneously and win their bet on the short. Like that would murder the price of GLP and it would definitely hurt the price of GMX. They have controls in place to keep that from happening. So like let's say the platform only has $100 billion of like liquidity, you can't come in and try to short for more than the liquidity is in there for the platform, right? Like
Hmm.
there's only so much betting that it'll allow just to ensure that it stays solvent the entire time, which I think is great for the downside. And it's probably going to be great for the upside too. But like the way it seems to be built is ideally to take the best advantage of a bull market. So like
Hmm.
assuming we're right and there's another bull run, you better believe I'm going to be deep into GMX for that and deep into GLP for that. And then
I
there's
probably will
other.
too. I think that's a decent idea. I might try it out. And do you use Arbitrum or
Oh
which
yeah,
one?
Arbitrum is like my number one L2, right?
Yeah.
I use it more than Optimism, honestly. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I would too because of the week delay period, you
hmm
know? Yeah.
So
There's actually something I wonder I wanted to know if you've heard of this before. Proof of stake, right? So there's a weird mathematical thing that happens with proof of stake networks. It'll take about 1,000 years, but the majority holder of any proof of stake network will always become at least a 51% holder over time.
yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll take like 1,000 years, but like basically
or
like every
faster to
year it
actively
just
work for.
compounds that they own more of it. You know what I mean? And eventually what happens is the inflation rate is such that like there's so much out there and they've gotten most of it that like by the time that it's doubled or whatever, that like they now own 51%, you know? And
Yeah, that's
I think
actually
Ethereum, like, isn't there like a hard cap on Ethereum or something? Like they're doing something with Ethereum to make that kind of like
so.
not a hard cap, but they're trying to make it deflationary with the fees and stuff. So
Yeah,
maybe that
correct.
won't be as much of but
It's
that's the
part of the
idea though.
merge, basically. Like the more it's used, the more that gets burned, right?
Yeah.
They're also decreasing the issuance by a factor of 5, I believe. So it's like the issuance drops dramatically. So the thing
I think it
that
still has the issue though. And like in the back of my
yeah,
mind, that's
does
something
issue.
that all proof of stake networks have that issue where
Yeah,
like then it can be successfully, either 51% attacked or like or whatever that like if you own 51% of a network, you now can proof of stake, you can now control the governance of the network. So
correct.
yeah.
So in all honesty, I'm gonna put on my dystopian cap here, right?
Yeah.
So like the problem with Bitcoin and the problem with like proof of stake coins is that like it's a
Well, Bitcoin's
really
proof of work.
yeah, but wait for it though.
Okay, okay.
Is like eventually some entity or cabal of entities gets control and like they will 100% over the long term come to dominate that network. If you're controlling the primary monetary network of the planet, you're effectively a financial god. You can do anything you want to the remaining millions of billions of people who are on that network. And that scares me. Like that puts me in that's super dystopian, right? It'd be like
Yeah.
Bill Gates like saying, "Hey, I'm now president of the United States because I bought the White House and every single person on my payroll, basically, right?
It's kind of
And
like that, but just more hidden. But
yeah,
but then
pretty
they could be
much.
like, wait,
It's already in place, but it's low key, right? Like
low
they're
key
not
live there right
bringing it
now.
around. Yeah, but like with Bitcoin, you can see that on chain. With Ethereum, you can see that on chain. Like you know who your daddy is, one way or the other, even if you're denying it. But yeah, they own all of the crypto. They own all the currency, and that's the number one way to control the population. Because like,
Yeah,
without the freedom to transverse, without the freedom to have commerce, right? All your other inalienable rights don't mean anything, right? So
yeah,
freedom of religion means nothing if you can't afford a building to assemble in, right? Freedom of, oh, like if you can't feed yourself to like stay conscious to have the assembly, it doesn't mean anything. Um, like if you can't buy clothes so that you can be in public without being arrested, right?
yeah. Well,
Like
you
there
know,
are
this is
so many.
actually. Sure, you can finish off. I'm trying to remember something.
Yeah, so like there are so many different things that you absolutely have to have commerce, like freedom of assembly. Like once again, you can't afford to rent a building. What was I thinking earlier on? So like anything you can think of, you need money to do it. If you control the money supply, you can keep people from doing things because you literally write the rules of the money supply. It's kind of scary. And then what were you gonna?
CBDCs. Well, yeah, CBDCs are going to let them do that basically.
I'm gonna probably hit you up and ask a little bit of advice later on.